Might have some doubts about Mitt, but that does not mean Rand Paul does. And to prove his allegiance, the Tea Party Kentucky Republican senator is storming New Hampshire this weekend, a state where his dad is very popular and big government is not. Senator, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be with you, Neil.
New Hampshire, obviously, if I were Mitt Romney, naturally I'd want you there. You're very popular there. Your father, certainly popular there. Your libertarian view and conservative view of limited government, extremely popular there. Is that a sign that Mitt Romney is worried there?
Well, I don't think so necessarily. I think they've just asked me to go to different places, Ohio, New Hampshire, Nevada. Some of these places have some appeal to libertarian-minded Republicans, and I think I can help to get the enthusiasm going and get our base energized.
Because the reason why I ask, and I've been mentioning, your father, it's still been kind of, not so peachy keen on Mitt Romney. Certainly not peachy keen on Barack Obama. I wouldn't know who he votes for. Has he told you? I mean, if he's not aggressively supporting Mitt Romney, what is he doing?
I'm not authorized to speak on his behalf. I have to talk to him at Thanksgiving and see what I'm allowed to say. I mean, right now he hasn't told me one way or another. So
he doesn't mind, not that you need his permission, he doesn't mind you going on the stump for Mitt Romney and to the degree you have shown your support.
No, and he realizes that we're different people. There are many things that I will support, many causes that I will champion, that he has championed for years, but we won't always be the same. And I consider the politics of the election to be the strategy for trying to get the best person we can to get elected. And I think the difference between President Obama and Governor Romney is stark. And I do worry about 23 million people out of work. I worry about that businesses are terrified of this president, and I think we've got to have a change in direction for the country. And so while, Ron Paul was my first pick, I am very happy to be supporting Governor Romney, and I think he will make a difference.
Do you think he is the better shot at getting serious tax budget reform? The argument for getting an extension, Senator, in all the tax rates that expire, the spending cuts, is that if it could be cobbled together with a deal to seriously reform the tax code, the whole budget process, Mitt Romney's the guy to do it. But conversely, they say punting on this isn't the answer, and it would hurt a President-elect Romney if that were to come to pass. What do you think?
I'm of the opinion that rather than trying to get overall tax reform in one big, huge package, that'll take a year after Romney's elected. My advice to him is break it up into pieces and let's immediately start passing something to show the American people that we will help them. Corporate income tax. Many Democrats agree that we should lower it. Why don't we just lower the corporate income tax and not make it part of some 2,000-page bill? Let's just lower the corporate income tax. And if people say, that'll add to the deficit, let's offset it with spending cuts.
All right. Now, what about the Romney position when it comes to, let's say, lowering taxes across the board, particularly for the rich, that, wait a minute, it'll be revenue neutral? I think his take is, I take enough credits, deductions, allowances away, it's a wash. In other words, the rich will remain paying 60% of the taxes as they do now. But his big emphasis seems to be in these debates, Senator, it's revenue neutral. Now, that struck many as a surprise. They were expecting a big tax cut, and that now they fear they're not going to be looking at a big tax cut. Might be a simpler tax system, but it won't be a big tax cut. How do you feel about that?
Revenue neutral tax cuts don't excite me very much. I want to stimulate the private sector by leaving more money in the private sector. When I campaign around Kentucky or Ohio or New Hampshire, I say I want more money left in the pockets of the people who earned it. That will stimulate the economy.
But he's not doing that. He's not doing that. If they have to be,
well, I mean, I will have my voice, but that will be my voice, because my voice will be, we balance it. I don't want to add to the deficit either, but we balance it with spending cuts. I'm also for getting rid of deductions.
But he doesn't talk as much about that. Senator, I'm sorry. He doesn't talk as much about that. I'm not saying he vaguely, you don't know what specifically he'll cut. He's PBS, I know, is one of them.
But the reason...
Go ahead.
The reason I make the point is that everybody's hassling Governor Romney over, will your deductions add up to enough to balance the tax reform so it's revenue neutral? My point would be, first, we want more money left in the private sector so it doesn't have to be neutral. But if you want it to balance so it doesn't add to the deficit, let's cut government spending. That should be our message, because whenever we've grown the economy, it's when we've lowered rates for everybody. We've gotten rid of some deductions, but when Reagan lowered the rate, we cut the unemployment rate in half, and we had several years where we had growth of 5 and 6%. To create 12 million jobs, you can't have just revenue neutral. I say lower taxes for everybody and offset it with government spending cuts.
Well, there's a concept. Stick around.